Hi, this is Kevin Flood from the Classic Car Show on America's Web Radio from Reading, England, and I'm speaking with Neil Fretwell from the Vintage Hot Rod Association here in the UK. Good evening, Neil.
Good evening, Kevin. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks. So it's good for you to give us your time, and I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. One of my first points is how does Neil become a hot rodder, I guess?
Well, there's no real big story behind it, really. There's no history of old cars in the family, apart from old cars that were new cars at the time they were made. About the only story I've got from my past is my dad, back in the 1950s, he was a teddy boy, and the only car he ever told me about was one that he used to drive to the Two Eyes Cafe to go and see the likes of Tommy Steele and Cliff Richard, that had Yogi and Boo Boo Express written down one side, and Don't Laugh, Your Daughter Could Be Inside on the other side, much like the jalopies they would have been running around in the 20s. But beyond that, nothing really that led me to them, until one day I went to a cruise night in Southend and saw a bunch of American cars driving up and down, and realised that the Cortina that I was in just didn't cut the mustard. So started doing some research. I was about 18 years old at this time, and the first old car I bought was a Morris Minor. That led to going to shows, that led to buying more magazines, and just a year or so later picked up on a feature in Street Machine magazine with a chopped Vauxhall Wyvern, I believe it was, that belonged to Ken Brooks, who was one of the low flyers. We went out and we wanted to replicate that car. We really liked the looks of it. They're sort of the low buck, sort of cheap looking, easy to achieve modified vehicle. Me and my brother bought a full console. We chopped it, put a V6 engine in there, had lots of sibling arguments over it about what we was going to do, and never actually got the car finished. But it did lead us on to attending custom car shows and hot rod shows. We went to one in Brighton where there was a car there owned by Bernie Chodosh, which was a 32 three-window coupe with a flat head in it. And for the 6 hours we were at the show, I looked at that one car and didn't look at anything else. From there, we started attending more and more events. There was an event in South England called the Great Ape Escape, and the low flyers used to get along there with their traditional hot rods. This would have been around about 1987, I guess, and that bug really bit for me, and I really needed a hot rod in my life. And a year or so later, one of those low flyer cars came up for sale, which was a V8 powered Model T. And I just went on from there, really, and it, getting books from Don Montgomery, Albert Drake, things like that. The Street Was Fun in 51 book was a big moment in my life when that fell through the letterbox. And it just, like a lot of people, really, it just really grabs hold of you and runs off. You don't really know the whole reason why you like it, but you know it's going to change your life.
Yeah, it's a really good summing up of how it bit you, basically. I know we've got something a little bit in common because we both got a sport coupe, but yours looks a little bit different to mine. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown on your sport coupe?
Well, the sport coupe's been in my life a long time as well. I mean, that takes us back to, it's going to be those guys called the low flyers again. For those American listeners of yours that maybe don't know the UK low flyers, they were a group of guys around about the mid-'80s, shook up the show car scene. Everyone was mostly polishing and sitting around in lawn chairs. These guys came along in primed cars and, showed us youngsters what we could do, what was accessible to us, and it looked like a load of fun. And it was one of those low flyers that I started buying the parts from for my sport coupe more than 20-odd years ago now. A guy by the name of Dave Loader. I bought a chassis, engine, axles, and a few other bits and pieces, along with a 24 Doctor's coupe body, which I assembled, got on the road. And then over the last 20 years, the cars evolved morphed, I should say, rather than evolved into different cars. It's been a Model A Roadster, it's been a Model T Roadster, and finally we settled around about 8 or 9 years ago, maybe a little longer, on a sport coupe body that was brought in from the States to England by John Reed, and it was in a rare old state. It was equivalent of around about $500, and we just pieced that together. John always said it wouldn't be a nice car, but I think I turned it around quite nicely, and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. That has now evolved from the pile of parts that it originally was. It's now got a full race Winfield Model A 4-banger in there, which was built by J Steele at Taylor Engine. There's a quick change axle out the back, 16-inch Kelsey wires all round, with Lions caps hiding those, which is a bit of an odd one, I know, but yeah, I get expensive wheels and cover them with cheap covers. It's a strange way of doing things, but I think they look real nice on there, so I'm sticking with them. But it's really the car I always wanted. I've always wanted a hopped-up Model A, and that's exactly what I've got now, so I consider myself very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it, and I like the fact that you, in reality, brought a Model A that was dead, basically, back to life. There is often criticism of people rodding, decent-looking Model A's, but I think a lot of the time it's people saving things rather than destroying them, to be honest.
Oh, I agree entirely. Yeah, I mean, as you say, in this country we get a lot of people saying we're cutting up good cars, but the body from mine was languishing in a scrapyard in California for more than 20 years, I'm led to believe, and it was in a rough condition. There were no. It really was the bare body shell, and in a bad shape at that. It was never going to get rescued as a restoration, although that's kind of what I took on to make it as it was. I learned to restore before I could actually hot rod the thing, because there was so much missing on it. You needed to find out what you needed to make it a Model A. So, yeah, you're dead right. We've saved one, not ruined one.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to have a look actually on the VHRA.co.uk or VHRA.com, it's .co.uk, isn't it?
It's .co.uk, yeah, the .com had gone, unfortunately.
Yeah. The build, Neil's build is on there, and you can see what he started off with, and I think you'll find, you'll agree that it's quite a lovely beast now in comparison. I mean, mine is a 29 Sport Coupe that's got 16s on it, a Simmons head and a few other bits and pieces, but I'm in limbo at the minute between a standard and a rod. so I'm kind of I'm sort of leaning towards the rod. So I've had to do such a lot to it because it had juice brakes and stuff on it that had been very badly done, and it's been more of a bit of a labour of love. But it's got to the point now where I can use it, so I can kind of see how you feel about it now as well. So once you can get it on the road, and just it's the visceral driving of those things, isn't it, that really happens. That's the thing I love about it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like that first day when you get the car, whether it's as a purchase of a car that's running or a car that you've built from the ground up. There's nothing like putting that key in the ignition for the first time and taking it round the block. It's all the hours in the garage, all the time saving, putting the money together, or whatever else it is that gets you to that point. It just all fades away. It's just for me, there's nothing quite compares to it.
No, I agree. What do you have at the minute, cars-wise? Is it just the Sport Coupe, or have you got something else? Or
we've got a couple of other cars in the family. We've got a 53 Chevy station wagon out on the front, which is my girlfriend's. That's a very, very mild custom, just lowered, and a few little bits and pieces done to that. There is also a Model A project in the garage that is probably going to get sold on, to be honest. I'm just not finding the time to get round to it, but it would have been a similar sort of build to what I have now. Winfield equipment on a 4-banger, fenderless, chopped, that sort of thing. Not as neat and tidy as the Coupe. That was far too much effort. It would have been a little bit rougher and readier, but as I say, I'm just not finding the time to get round to it. But if I do sell it, the money will go back into something with wheels. I've got a little bit of a hankering for an early Harley or Indian or something like that, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, I actually saw a beautiful. I was at there was a steam rally near me at Thiel, near Reading, and there was a lovely ex-military Indian there that had been converted for civilian use. It was lovely.
Yeah, they're very, very nice things. Unfortunately, for something that's missing two wheels, they go for a hell of a lot of money.
They certainly do.
But I guess that's true of most of these things nowadays. I'm true of this as well. I'm one of these people that if my car was to come up for sale, I couldn't actually afford it anymore. It's a funny thing,
Yeah.
It was built out of parts over plenty of years, and I think you finally end up getting around to spending what these things would have cost you in the first place, but it's easier spread over time, But when you finish and you find out your car's, worth into the 10s, 20s, 30s of thousands, it's quite a surprise, really. The values behind them. But I mean, I'm sure some people buy them for the investment. I certainly don't mind. It's all about the fun for me.
Same here. I mean, I think I was lucky when I bought mine, but I think mine would have probably cost me $2 or $3 more if I bought it now. So,
definitely, yeah. I mean, I help with valuations for the VHRA for insurance purposes and that sort of thing, and even the insurance companies. When I first started with this about 5 years ago, I was completing valuations all the time for people when they were around the £15,000 to £20,000 mark. Now, the insurance companies have got I think it's about £25,000 before they even start to question the value. So even the insurers are realising that they're going up in price. Which are handy, because hopefully, if the worst should happen, I don't know of anyone that has had an accident recently. The insurers will recompense what these things are worth.
Yeah, who do you find best to deal with in the UK in terms of hot rod and custom insurance? Just in your experience.
Well, we've got a few companies we like. It's impossible to pin down one company that's perfect for everybody. You'll get a company that will be the cheapest, but then they won't insure anybody under the age of 30, and they won't let the car be out of the garage overnight and that sort of thing. But, that suits some people, and others want something where they can use the car every day. But we've got a little bank of insurers that we use. We've got a company by the name of, I'm trying to think of it. We've got Cherished Vehicle Insurance is one of them. They're new on board with us, and I know they've just put all their premiums down. Funnily enough, there's a nice little advert for them now. Another one is Haggerty, and then there's another company called Brentaker. And between the three of those, we've negotiated a discount with all of them, and I think we can pretty much cover everybody's needs within the VHRA with those three companies.
That's excellent. Right, well, we're just coming up to our first segment now. We're gonna take a break and pay some bills, and we'll come back and talk to Neil Fretwell again after the break.